Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotra Sadasri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo Shamo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swamantana Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we once again welcome all the devotees for the second session of the Bhakti-śāstra course. Yesterday we had a brief introduction about the course, and also we had discussed about where is Bhagavad Gita in the Vedic lore, and also we also try to understand what is the what should be our mood in trying to learn the scriptures, what is it that we are expecting actually, what should we expect. As we yesterday discussed, we should become devotees of the Lord and try to surrender our lives in the service of Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas, and preach this message of Krishna consciousness and save the lives of the people. We save ourselves and also we save the lives of others. So that should be the outcome of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, engaging in the service of this Krishna consciousness movement. So today what we will try to do is we will, Srila Prabhupada has given the preface and introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. So we will try to have an overview of that and pick out some points and try to understand what Srila Prabhupada has offered here. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So yesterday some of you, I'm sure some of you would have did the homework, you would have read the preface and the introduction. So if you just open the Bhagavad Gita as it is book, you can see at the beginning, Srila Prabhupada offers his respects to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana because he is the one who wrote the Govinda Bhashya, the commentary for the Vedanta. And then we see the contents of the Bhagavad Gita. We will try to go through these contents later. And then from the publishers there is setting the scene, when the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, and then you see the preface. So we may see that it contains about some three pages of contents of preface, but we can see there are lots and lots of points which are very deep, and it exactly sets the mood why Bhagavad Gita is written, Bhagavad Gita as it is written, and also what one should understand, and or what will be the outcome or the success of reading this Bhagavad Gita as it is. So we will go through that. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay. By the way, just it's a point made here that this preface is actually it's given by Srila Prabhupada. You can see Prabhupada's signature behind. So some of you do not know. We may sometimes, generally we have this habit of some book is there. What we do is just open some middle page, or we go to the something whatever we want. We would like to see. We just open, but it's very good to go right from the beginning of preface what Srila Prabhupada wants to say here, then we will try to understand what is this. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada says thus the present attempt is to offer the original manuscript of this great book of knowledge with full parampara explanation in order to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively. Now we can see before when this Bhagavad Gita as it is was first time it was published, Srila Prabhupada in the beginning to write the preface, he says that originally he compiled the manuscript, everything was ready, and we know how it was first published with the Macmillan. Prabhupada requested Brahmananda Prabhu, Brahmananda to approach the Macmillan and then try to print it, and Macmillan is a big company, and then finally when they presented the George Harrison's audio, the recordings that we had, and then Brahmananda also had full faith on what Prabhupada said, went and met. So they agreed to publish the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then we can see later that although Prabhupada wanted the full edition to be printed, they it was not, many things were cut short in that publication. The illustrations were not there, and the number of pages it got reduced to. So Srila Prabhupada was not so happy with that. So later, we can see the next edition. It's the full, like what we have now. We have the preface, we have the introduction, we have the verses, we have word-to-word meaning, we have translation, and we have detailed purport. And then there is also index, and everything is later. It was printed. Now Prabhupada says, thus the most important aspect of Prabhupada's presentation of the Bhagavad Gita as it is that an authentic edition, which means what Krishna wanted to say, the same message is repeated here by Srila Prabhupada without any additional explanation or trying to say something different from what Krishna wanted to say. So Srila Prabhupada says that, this is the idea of presenting this original manuscript as Krishna has given this Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, as whatever intention with which Krishna has presented to Arjuna, the same intention is maintained, is presented by Srila Prabhupada. So that's a very important aspect, and we can see the result of studying Bhagavad Gita as it is. We can see throughout the world, there have been so many Bhagavad Gitas around before, but how many people have become devotees? How many people have changed their lives from not serving God to serving God? How many of them have given their bad habits? Specifically, we can just see the Bhagavad Gita when it went to the Western country. Prabhupada started this movement in US, and they have no clue of what is Vedic civilization. Meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, all these four principles. All these four principles are basically broken. That's how the civilization is seen there. So in such a place, when this pure message was presented by Srila Prabhupada, it had a very profound effect. Prabhupada used to do 3 classes at the beginning. He used to do in a week 3 classes in the evening. Of course, he was on one side, he was chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He was doing Kirtan. You can see, we know the famous Kirtan Srila Prabhupada used to do under the Tompkinson Square Park. Prabhupada used to do that Kirtans, and also Prabhupada used to do 3 lectures in a week and used to speak from the Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that he was with full parampara explanation, he presented this. So presenting Bhagavad Gita in its original form with full parampara explanation. So this is the important thing. So I think there are more than 600 editions of Bhagavad Gita. Even now, maybe as the days and years goes, there are so many people want to give an explanation for Bhagavad Gita, but how many books are in parampara presenting the same message? That is to be seen. Now Prabhupada says, our Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural and transcendental due to its being based on Bhagavad Gita as it is. So now this is again another important point Prabhupada is trying to emphasize, that the movement that we are into, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, some people, they think that it is a cult. Cult means it's some kind of a sectarian group, or they have their own beliefs and own system, something strange from the orthodox way of following, of understanding of religion and like that. But we can see how the practice in this movement of the in Krishna consciousness movement is based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is. And it's not something which is spoken 5,000 years back. This message was spoken by the Lord to Arjuna, and the teachings are preserved as it is, and it is being followed. And we can see those who follow these teachings, those who follow the message of the Bhagavad Gita, we can see that there is transformation in their hearts. So if it is something concocted, something just an offshoot, something which someone has started it in a new fashion, this kind of an effect it will not have on people. So that is a proof. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. We can see with our own eyes how people's lives have changed. This is something amazing with Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Prabhupada says that that's why he says that this is genuine, historically authorized. So coming in parampara, the teaching, how Krishna spoke to Arjuna, and then in parampara the knowledge is descended, and the acharyas, they have preserved the knowledge and it is presented. So when Prabhupada named this Bhagavad Gita, he named it as it is. So that is that's why as it is, because as it is given by Krishna to Arjuna. So it's genuine, historically authorized, as Prabhupada says. And also we can see, it is authorized by tradition and rishis. All the great rishis have studied the Bhagavad Gita. They have presented it systematically, and that's why Srila Prabhupada is saying that this Krishna consciousness movement is successful, for it is based on Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that's the point. The point is that we are not doing something whimsical. We are not practicing something on our own. Whatever that we are following is based on Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So that's the principle. So that is why this movement is very authorized. And Prabhupada then says, if I have any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master, His divine grace, Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotra Srimad Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. So this is again an amazing quality that we see in Prabhupada, his dedication, his surrender to the instructions of his spiritual master. So this is the mood of a disciple, always giving credit to the spiritual master. Or it's not just on the outset. It's not just you just say for the sake of saying. That is how a disciple is. His heart is molded to always give credit to the spiritual master. Whatever good qualities we have, whatever anything that we accomplish, so we immediately should understand it is as the mercy of the spiritual master. This is a very good lesson that we learned right from the preface Srila Prabhupada is setting here. That Srila Prabhupada is explaining that all the credit he is giving to the spiritual master. So in our lives also, we should, whatever that we do, whatever little thing, tiny task that we perform, whatever little success we have to attribute it to our spiritual master. It is all by his mercy. That is very important for us to imbibe this character. So never think that by our own strength or by our own intelligence, by our own power, we are very tiny. But if we are empowered by our spiritual master and the whole parampara is there to back us up, then so many tasks can be performed. So Srila Prabhupada is actually is showing his indebtedness to Srila Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur. So again, Srila Prabhupada says, if personally I have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is without any adulteration. So this is again an amazing statement by Prabhupada, and we can see when we are going to read this Bhagavad Gita as it is, we will try to look into some of the verses and also the commentaries of the previous acharyas, how Srila Prabhupada, specifically we can see Srila Prabhupada's presentation is very much in line with Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana's commentary, and also we can see Srila Prabhupada's commentary is based on Sripad Ramanujacharya, Sripad Madhvacharya, but basically very much in line with Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana Prabhu, and also we can see how the previous acharyas have also maintained the parampara. How we can see, if you see Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana Prabhu's commentary, how it is in line with Srila Sridhara Swami's commentary, and like that. So this is parampara. So one time actually there was one devotee, I think it was Dr. Patel, he got Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, and then he said that Prabhupada, your Bhagavad Gita as it is, when I just look at your Bhagavad Gita and then Ramanujacharya's commentary, it is in parallel. And Prabhupada said, this is parampara. Prabhupada said, so that is the point. Somebody may think that same thing is repeated. Same thing is repeated in the sense that yes, the same message is maintained as it is given by the previous acharyas. So that's why anyone who wants to write something, first of all, you should not concoct anything, you should not add anything, you should not subtract anything, you should not give some new meaning to it. The same mood or the same message should be maintained. One may have his own realization, but those realizations should be in line with the conclusions of the previous acharyas. So that is very important for us to, when we speak, when we write. This is a very important principle should be followed. Otherwise, as we heard yesterday, it will be only creating chaos in the society. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatri Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpadayaiva Kalpate. So whatever the Vedic message that we are presenting or we are trying to follow in our lives, that we hear in Guru Parampara and we present it according to Guru Parampara. That's very much required. Otherwise, we will only be a great obstacle in the path of pure devotion. So Prabhupada says, before my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all the English editions of the Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So this is, again, Prabhupada is stressing this point that we should not have our personal agenda when we present the Krishna conscious philosophy to others. So Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, so when we say, whenever we distribute books, whenever we meet people, we show this as it is. And sometimes people ask, what is this as it is? So that is the point, what Krishna wants to convey, what Krishna wants to present. What is it that Krishna is really saying? The same message it is being offered in this Bhagavad Gita. So there are so many editions of Bhagavad Gita which is available in the market, and when we read and we just get lost. What is the conclusion? When we read the Bhagavad Gita, immediately three things conclusions we can get out of it. One is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are His eternal servants. And we are meant to serve the Supreme Lord. We are meant to please the Supreme Lord. So by reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, this should be the conclusion that one should get into. But we can see there are so many Bhagavad Gita which is giving so many different messages, so many different ideas, which is not what Krishna is saying. And Prabhupada once, he said that you want to say something, you say something, but don't use Bhagavad Gita to present this message. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said like this, but you are a rascal because you are presenting it in your own way. And why are you just saying that Krishna is saying this? So Prabhupada never liked it. In the name of Bhagavad Gita, giving their own ideas. So that's why Srila Prabhupada points out here that there should be no personal ambition in trying to give this message. Just repeat what Krishna says, the message what Krishna says. So that's the mood in which we have to understand, and we should present it also. So now Prabhupada says, this absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara. Now this is again another important point for approaching Bhagavad Gita. So we will start to understand Bhagavad Gita only when we try to follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, or rather become a devotee of the Lord. Then only the knowledge will be revealed. Then only you will be able to understand the message of Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise it is not possible. So that's why we have to be, when we hear it from the proper source, and when it is presented with the same message that what Krishna wants to give to Arjuna, then it has a very profound effect on the hearer. So sometimes we can see, that there are so many Bhagavad Gitas that are available, which is giving perverted information, or it is completely taking the student to some other conclusions about Krishna being some historical figure. It is not Krishna. It is something unmanifested, which is being referred to. Krishna is bhakti is not bhakti is some sentiments, some emotions. So many misunderstandings are presented in various Bhagavad Gita. So we will be completely carried away, and we will never be able to understand what Krishna wants to say. I remember a year back, His Grace Mukundatta Prabhu was here. He was sharing his realization of how he has read so many editions of Bhagavad Gita before. He has many editions of Bhagavad Gita he has read, and really he could not figure out what is the message that actually is presented. He said the conclusion was very difficult to understand. What is the goal? Nothing was clear. And then he said that then when he got Bhagavad Gita as it is, right as we see here from the preface to the introduction, and just go page by page, everything becomes crystal clear. Everything is presented very simply, straightforward, very clear. And when some things are very straight, very clearly explained in the verse itself, and Prabhupada also maintains the same message. He doesn't interpret it, and he doesn't give a different meaning, and he very clearly presents it. So it becomes very easy for the student who takes this message, and such a person can understand how Krishna is supreme, how we are his eternal servants, how we have to serve him. All those clear conclusions of the Gita we can get by reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that's the point, because this knowledge comes in parampara, and Prabhupada has maintained that same mood. So Prabhupada, he goes on to explain that how the different other editions which create problems. We can see here, Prabhupada says, the result of such a blunder, Mayavada Bhashya, will be that the misguided student of Bhagavad Gita will certainly be bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance, and will not be able to go back to home, back to Godhead. And now we see, when we hear Bhagavad Gita from other unauthorized sources, then they don't even have, the major problem with them is that they don't accept Krishna to be a person. They don't accept, they have the other misconception that we are also God, you are God, I am the sun, I am the moon, I am Krishna, you are Krishna, everyone is Krishna, and everything is illusion, all these kinds of ideas. And where it is heading to, it is heading to nowhere. We will completely, our destination will be void. This is what will happen. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out, that for the spiritual practitioner, if he tries to read an unauthorized edition, then the result, the outcome of reading Bhagavad Gita will be, he will not be directed towards Krishna or serving Krishna, or having a clear conception that Krishna is a person and we have to serve him. That idea you will never get. Rather, we will become offenders in trying to understand that it's all impersonal, it's all just some energy. All these misconceptions we will end up with. And that's why we need to hear from the proper spiritual master who comes in parampara. So Prabhupada is saying that the result of hearing from the Mayavada Anandas, Mayavada Bhashya, is the problem is that we will become completely carried away, and our whatever progress that we have will become stagnant, and in fact we will become, instead of become proper worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will become offenders. So this is the danger of reading improper editions of the Bhagavad Gita. So that's the point. So only a devotee in parampara can understand Krishna. So, and also we can see Krishna right there in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He clearly explains that why the Lord gave this knowledge to Arjuna. Why he had given this to Arjuna? Because Arjuna is a very dear devotee of the Lord, and he has full faith in the message of the Lord. So Bhagavad Gita, which is considered to be a rahasyam, is revealed to the devotee. Bhaktosime sakacheti rahasyam etad uttamam. And also Prabhupada many times he says Bhaktosime, Priyosime, because the devotees are very dear for the Lord. And now we will see, right, in this preface and introduction, Srila Prabhupada will also will explain. So if somebody is not a devotee, sometimes otherwise it happens like what to say, like a cyclic logic. Like, someone is not a devotee, then how he can understand Bhagavad Gita? No, only if he is a devotee he can understand Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita itself. So how do you understand? So Prabhupada, he gives the standard how we can enter into this rahasyam, how we can be part of this knowledge and understand this. So we will see that. So Prabhupada says, our only purpose is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose in fulfilling the mission of life. So what is Prabhupada trying to say here? In trying to fulfill the mission of life. The mission of life is what? The mission of life is to become servant of Krishna, surrender our lives to Krishna. That is the mission. That is what Krishna has come, has descended to give this knowledge to everyone. Unless we get this knowledge, we will not be able to come out of Maya. We are completely in illusion, thinking ourselves to be the enjoyers. We think ourselves to be the controllers. We think that we have no problems, no difficulties. Just we can become happy in this material world. It's a big illusion. So when we come in contact with this pure message of Bhagavad Gita as it is, then our real mission of life will be revealed to us. Till that time, we are in complete hallucination. We are having different worldview, so many misunderstandings. But when we hear from Krishna through the parampara, we will know what we should need to do. So devotees, when they distribute Bhagavad Gita as it is, sometimes they say that So sometimes people say that we have Bhagavad Gita. It's all we have. We have been reading. So the question is that, you have been reading Bhagavad Gita, why you have not become devotee? Why you have not surrendered your lives to Krishna? So if you read Bhagavad Gita as it is, the result should be you should surrender your lives to Krishna. So if we are not surrendering our lives to Krishna, that means that either the Bhagavad Gita, what we are reading is not the proper Bhagavad Gita, or we are not following the instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. So, so this is the point, that the message is very clear, and when we hear from the pure devotee, then naturally our feelings, dormant feelings for Krishna is invoked, actually. This is the point. So that's why also the scripture says, Avaishnava mukha udgirnam putam harikatamritam shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochishtam yatopaya. So when we hear from Avaishnavas, or those who are not devotees of the Lord, then it is like a milk being touched by the serpent. The effect will be poisonous. It will have a poisonous effect. So, so that's why we are, when many times we repeat this here in Parampara, hear from a bona fide guru. It's not that we are, some people will think that, we are fanatics, but it's not fanatic, it's realism. This is realistic. Otherwise, your destination will be, one's destination will be very dangerous. So we have to hear in Parampara, that's the message. And then we will know what is the mission of life. And when we know what is the mission of life, we can work for this mission of life. The mission of life is to surrender our lives to Krishna, serve Him and try to please Him. So this is the point. So Prabhupada says, one has to understand the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as He was directly understood by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that, yes, as Arjuna understood, we should also understand in the similar way. So what was Arjuna's understanding after hearing the Chatushloki of the Bhagavad Gita, so many instructions Krishna gave before. After hearing all these things, Arjuna immediately he concluded that yes, Krishna, you are the Param Brahman. Your abode is the supreme abode. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, you are the purest person. You are Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. You are that Adi Deva, you are that original personality, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. And you are unborn. So all these conclusions, we will also get this understanding if we follow in the footsteps of Arjuna. So Prabhupada says, purpose of presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to guide the conditioned student to fulfill the mission of life by accepting Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead as Arjuna did. You see, right in the preface, so clear, such a clear message Prabhupada is giving that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. There is no confusion, there is no around the bush trying to say about some power or some energy or some consciousness. Right in the beginning, Prabhupada is making it very clear that this is the message of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and to surrender to him is the mission of life. So Prabhupada says the Krishna conscious movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. So that we already discussed that, so until we get to know about that the goal of life is not to satisfy our senses, the goal of life is to please Krishna, we are completely in ignorance. We are being covered by Maya. So the Krishna conscious movement, what it does, it helps us to bring us to our constitutional position as being the eternal servant of the Lord. So this is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. So this will be the result. If we don't surrender to Krishna, if we don't engage in his service, then the result is that we will be again and again born in this material world, going through birth, death, old age and disease. Again, punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam, punarapi jatare jatare shayanam. Iha samsare bahudustare, kripaya pare pahi murare. So as Shankara says, that we have to, again and again, we will be born in this material world. Again we are born, we become old, we get disease, we become old, we again die, again we get into another body. This cycle, vicious cycle, we will be part of this vicious cycle, and we will be struggling. We'll be going through different miseries. That's what we see in this material world. So Prabhupada says that by hearing from this Bhagavad Gita, we become servants of Krishna, and then we avoid this suffering. So Krishna conscious movement offers highest perfection to all by teaching that a living entity is eternally the servant of Krishna. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. So this is again another important message from the Bhagavad Gita that we hear, and it's a eye opener for us, because right from time immemorial we have been trying to satisfy our senses. That's how we have led our lives. We have been taught like that, and when we come in contact with this pure message, oh, what a relief! Whether we have applied it in our life or not, at least we get to hear, oh, this is the perfect path. So far, so long I have been trying to satisfy my senses. I am trying to please myself, but the result is that it's only frustration, because Jiva cannot be happy. Jiva by constitutional position is eternal servant of Krishna. So we have to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So this is the message that we get, and immediately those who are intelligent, when they at least theoretically accepted it, and they try to put this in practice to satisfy the senses of Krishna, they become happy. Krishna immediately in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives this. Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkayone evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So Krishna says that the happiness one derives by the contact of the senses with the sense objects, it has got a beginning and it has got an end. Those who are intelligent, they don't dwell on this. They dwell on this practice of trying to lord over the material nature with the senses. So this is the point. So the central point of Bhagavad Gita is to satisfy Lord's senses instead of our own. So this is the important message. If we can get this message by reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, that Krishna's senses should be satisfied. Rishikesha is Rishika Isha, he is the master of the senses and he has to be satisfied. If we get this message, then our understanding is proper. And we can see the same message is repeated in the Bhagavatam, the same message is again given in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and all the books, because this is the central theme. So everything is based on this theme to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Atendriya priti vancha tare bhali kam, Krishnendriya priti icha dhare premanam. So this is what Chaitanya Charitamrita says, that when we try to satisfy the senses of the Lord, that is prema, then we get real happiness. But when we try to satisfy our own senses, it is just lust, it is just karma. So it will only result in frustration. But because we are in illusion, we are completely carried away. We do not know what we are doing. And we are completely carried away by the waves of the material energy. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of the songs, he says, Jeev Krishna Das, E Bishwas, Korle Toyar Dhukonai. So when the Jiva, he understands that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, all the sufferings are finished. So that is the point. So that's what Prabhupada says, that we have to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So Prabhupada further says, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. So now this is a great fortune that we have. So we have the Bhagavad Gita as it is book, and we get to know, we hear from Bhagavad Gita what we should do. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are His eternal servants. We have to serve the Lord. How to practically apply it in our lives? How to put that in practice? So Prabhupada says that we need to take guidance from the Hare Krishna movement. So that's why we see in our Bhagavad Gita as it is, immediately open, we have the address of all the centers, we have the contact numbers, all the details are there. After reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, one may call up the devotee in the local center, try to come in touch with them, try to come and then engage in the service and get to know all the teachings. So now the point is, we also hear from many devotees who just got Bhagavad Gita as it is. They read paper to paper, cover to cover. They read the whole book. Then they were just looking for devotees. When they saw the devotees, early days we could see so many devotees join the movement like this. And they were in great bliss to see the devotees practicing the teachings given in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. And it is really Srila Prabhupada's mercy, out of great compassion, that he started this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And in that way, Prabhupada gave a facility for devotees for people to come and then join, associate with devotees and perfect their lives. So this statement that Prabhupada is making here also gives us the importance of associating with devotees. So the knowledge, as we said, the knowledge will be revealed through a pure devotee. So we take the instructions of the pure devotee under the guidance of all those followers who are in line with the pure devotee. So Prabhupada said, we hope therefore that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, 12th May 1971, Sydney, Australia. So Prabhupada here, he follows in the footsteps of his guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he also used to say the same thing, that even if one person becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, my mission is success. So, this is a saying from Chanakya. Prabhupada often quotes, Ekas Chandras Tamohanti Nacha, Nachatara Sahasrasaha. So he says that what is the use of millions of rascal stars? Sometimes Prabhupada used to say, what is the use of millions of stars? Rather, one moon is enough, which will dissipate all the darkness. So, and it's amazing that by reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, so many people are taking this this message of Bhagavad Gita, trying to follow the pure principles that is given here. The pure message, Shuddha Bhakti, is maintained, and we can see so many devotees selflessly engage in the service of the Lord. So that is the power of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, who actually, by his mercy, he has opened the channel to the spiritual world, to the Lord's abode. Yeah, it reminds me of that. We see the pictures of whatever early paintings that we have in the moment. It used to be written, windows to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is presentation, actually it opens up our dimension about the eternal Dham, Krishna, his devotees, his service, and the bliss one derives by trying to please the Lord and his devotees. So now, so this is what we have. There may be more points which you might have said. So these are some of the important points that we covered in the preface. And now we will try to go through the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Before we begin with the introduction, Prabhupada starts the introduction with the Mangala Charana. The Mangala Charana is an invocation. Srila Prabhupada, he writes this Mangala Charana to invoke the mercy of his Guru and all the predecessor Acharyas going up to, in Parampara, going through Lord Chaitanya to Radha Krishna. So it's a beautiful Mangala Charan. Prabhupada has written there, and then you can see, that's the, again you can see a pure devotee, how he is always in line with the, depending on the mercy of the previous Acharyas. So that is again another great quality of a pure devotee that we could see. So there is the introduction. We could see all this message that is there in this introduction. So first it begins with the Mangala Charana, then the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, in what mood the Bhagavad Gita should be read, in what mood it should be approached, the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, why Bhagavad Gita is present, why do we need this message of the Bhagavad Gita, what are the subject matters of the Bhagavad Gita, what is it that it speaks, by reading the Bhagavad Gita, what kind of understanding one will get, then what will be the result of the Bhagavad Gita when you read Bhagavad Gita, and what is the conclusion, what will be your destination, and then how do we apply this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to attain that destination, to attain that perfection. So we see basically all these are the main topics that we see in the introduction, and we can also see that in the introduction itself we can see that there is also Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. We can see that also, that as we see here that the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita, it all deals with the Sambandha, the subject of the Bhagavad Gita also, and then the result of the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita deals with the Prayojana, and the practical application of this knowledge deals with the Abhidaya. So for those who, I'm sure most of you do know what is Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana, for those who are not aware of it. So Sambandha, the whole Vedic text is we can whatever scriptures we see, we can just classify it broadly into these three categories as Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. Sambandha basically deals with the relationship that we have with the Lord, who we are, what is our relationship with the Lord, what is our relationship with this material world. So all this, our clear position, clear understanding we get to know by getting the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or any book that we read. So that is called the Sambandha Jnana, Sambandha or the knowledge of understanding things in proper perspective. Then how to apply this knowledge in our life, that is Abhidaya. Abhidaya is a process by which we establish a relationship with the Lord, or or we can even say that that is the bona fide process by following a system that we will be able to surrender our lives to the Lord. Then by following that, by having a clear understanding, by following the system, and by following the Abhidaya process, the result is Prayojana. Prayojana means, what is it? The result. The result is that we develop we become eternal servant of the Lord, we develop love for Krishna. So that's the result. And that's how we see in Prabhupada's any book we can take, we can open any page, we can just see that there is Prabhupada always, his presentation is, you can see it is, you can classify it into this is Sambandha, this is Abhidaya, and this is Prayojana, and like that. Okay. So Prabhupada invokes Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Prabhupada offers his obeisances to his spiritual master. By his mercy, one is able to actually see. Because by the torchlight of knowledge, he is removing all the ignorance. Prabhupada says, I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. And we can then, he offers his respectful obeisances to his spiritual master, and then in Parampara, it goes on to his spiritual master, and then to Shad Goswamis, then to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then to the Gopis, then to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. So like that in Parampara, if you see the Mangalacharan that is offered. So now we will get into the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, what Prabhupada speaks about. So Prabhupada, he explains that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very clearly at the beginning, in the preface also he established it, but we have to at least, we should know that before we approach this Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That has to be understood. That has to be accepted. So without that spirit, knowing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will not be able to make progress. We will see that. So Bhagavad Gita is understood by a devotee like Arjuna, who is in direct relationship with Sri Krishna. So Prabhupada says that to understand the Bhagavad Gita, one has to be a devotee. So he has to be following the footsteps of Arjuna. Then we will also be able to get to know what Krishna is actually conveying to Arjuna. And Prabhupada says, only by the process of devotional service one can revive one's relationship with Sri Krishna. So this is again an important point, that not by any other process, not by karma, not by jnana, not by yoga, other yogas, it is by bhakti yoga. It is bhaktya mam abhi jhanati. Krishna very clearly says, yavan yaschashmi tattvataha. Very clearly says that by bhakti, one will be able to surrender his life to Krishna. So that's the process. So that should be the understanding while reading Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada further says that therefore Bhagavad Gita should be taken up in a spirit of devotion. So that should be the spirit. With that bhakti principle, one should approach the Bhagavad Gita. Now this is an interesting point here. This is what we said before, that Prabhupada says we should at least theoretically accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and with that submissive spirit we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita, because it is a great mystery. So this is what we said before, that at least theoretically we should have this understanding. Theoretically means we read the book, okay, the author says this, okay, Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, by devotion. We can only we can approach the Lord. We should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna. We should take up the process of bhakti. At least we should have this theoretical understanding. Then we can make progress in the right direction. In the beginning only, if we don't have this understanding, Krishna is a mythological figure, bhakti is some emotional process. If you have a prejudice like this, you have a preconception like this, you will never be able to approach Bhagavad Gita in the right spirit. So Srila Prabhupada very clearly gives a warning how it should be approached. And also we can see, some people immediately they give some crazy explanation for Kurukshetra, and say Kurukshetra is a dharma kshetra, or it's a holy place. So they give some weird interpretation for Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is the body, and the 5 senses are the 5 Pandavas, and all crazy explanation from where it is being derived. Very difficult to give an explanation for that, how you come to such a conclusion. So Prabhupada says that with this understanding, if you approach Bhagavad Gita, then you will not be able to come to a proper conclusion. So that's the point. So, and also Bhagavad Gita is an important book. So Bhagavad Gita is the message of Bhagavad Gita is the knowledge is universal. We can see the topics of soul. We can see the topics of we are all having birth, death, old age and disease. We have to take a new body. Everyone has got the difficulties of anger, greed, lust. So these are common for all the people, the entire human society. This is a common message, and it's not that this book is only for the Hindus. Generally, that's the understanding. For Bhagavad Gita, Hindus, for Christians, Bible, and then for the Muslims, Quran, and there are so many other books for different faiths. But we can just very clearly see that message. That's why yesterday we were explaining that there are palpable facts. Palpable facts means these are eternal facts. Anyone from any background who approaches this message, he will be able to, with the open heart, with the broad-minded, if he approaches this knowledge, he will be able to derive benefit if he approaches with this proper spirit. So now, Prabhupada, he goes on to say about the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. For devotees, one information that there are so many points that is there in this introduction. So there are many other amazing points which is given. So you please make your own notes, study and try to write it down, and then it's really amazing. So we have just picked out very essential points from that. So again, I'm repeating it to you that you have to do that homework to really see how wonderfully Prabhupada had presented this. One other information that I missed to say, that this introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, it was in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada had, the beginning of the early days in ISKCON, the starting, Prabhupada used to give lectures. When Srila Prabhupada, he gave a lecture on the topic of the Bhagavad Gita, and I think at the time when he was speaking, even though there was no one, he just spoke it and it was recorded. And then the one devotee suggested to Prabhupada, why this can be an introduction to Bhagavad Gita? And then Prabhupada said, why not? Yes. Then it was published as an introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so coming back to the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, why we need the Bhagavad Gita at all? What is the reason? So Prabhupada says, every man is in difficulty in so many ways, as Arjuna was also in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna surrendered unto Sri Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. So, this is again an amazing point Prabhupada is trying to say here, that this is immediately, every one of us in this material world, we are suffering. This is a plain truth. we may see so many advertisements outside, people laughing, being very happy and like that, but actually, really people are suffering in this material world. And there is no need to give any explanation in the last 1.5 years what is going on with this pandemic that we are seeing back and forth, how much suffering that is going on, how many people are in great distress, So the pandemics will come, it will go, so many issues. This nature of this material world is like this. Always there are so many problems. So Prabhupada, there is another amazing statement which is really very profound in this introduction. Prabhupada says, our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. I'm sure some of you might have gone through it. I'll again repeat this. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence, Prabhupada says. This is again a great thing. Oh, actually that means what he is trying to say, this is not our place. This material world is not our place. We are in a dream world. This is not our real world. We are in hallucination, thinking this to be our real place. Prabhupada sometimes used to call utopia. Utopia means it's not something real. Although it's not that our understanding is not that it's all completely illusion. Yes, there is a reality, but this is temporary. This material world is temporary. And we are struggling here because we don't have the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, we are His eternal servants, we are meant to please Him. We don't have this understanding. So we are carried away by Maya and we are struggling in this world. So Prabhupada says that we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence. So what is happening? Because we accept this material world to be reality, then there is associated problems along with it. There is happiness and distress, sukha and dukkha, both are there in this material world. There is bhayam, there is fear. So when really a person goes through this suffering, and then that intelligent person, he makes inquiry. He starts to ask questions. Why am I suffering? Why there is, what is the problem? Prabhupada says, out of so many human beings who are suffering there, are a few who are actually inquiring about their position as to what they are, why they are put into this awkward position and so on. Very rare to, now this kind of inquiry, when we are in Maya, we don't ask this question at all. We say, everything is fine, so nice, very nice, wonderful, everything is very blissful, we think, but we are being beaten in this material world, left, right and center. And quite some people had this, some people at least would say we had this realization in the last 2 years with this pandemic. Whenever there is some big suffering, people know it's really, this material world is suffering. Whenever we see some wars, some great commotion, then at least during that time, people have that yes, there is suffering. But immediately the approach is that few people, they turn to God, they ask questions, why am I suffering, why there is difficulty, what is the solution? So like that they think. So we can see that this is what differentiates us from animals, right? Ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha samanyam etat pashubir naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko visesha dharmena hina pashubi samana. Very clearly the Hitopadesh says that the humans have a special intelligence, visesha, a special quality that differentiates humans from animals, because humans can question, why am I suffering? What is the goal of life? Why death is imposed on me? Why my hairs are becoming white? Why I am getting disease? These questions humans can ask, and they can try to find solution for it. But the animals, they cannot. We cannot train a dog or a buffalo on these inquiries. We cannot, because that's a limitation in the animal species. Different animals have different capabilities, and the dogs can sniff. It can, by sniffing, it can figure out everything. The birds, certain birds can fly so high and still they can see the objects which is down. Elephants are very powerful. So different animals have different power, but humans have been invested with a higher consciousness to question and to understand what is the relationship with the Lord, what is the relationship with this material world, why am I suffering? So to get the answers for this, we need to hear from the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna comes, Krishna descends to help us, to help the conditioned and suffering souls to come out of this suffering. So Lord Krishna descends specifically to re-establish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. So Lord mercifully descends and then He gives this knowledge. So this is the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, is to deliver the mankind from the nescience of material existence. So we are struggling and suffering in this material world, which is compared to a jail. Many people do not know this, and they do not know that this material world is like a jail. People think that it's a paradise, but actually it is a jail. It's a dark place. Without the sun, there cannot be any light here. The scriptures, they give us warning. There is different sufferings: adhyatmika klesha, adhibhautika klesha, adhidaivika klesha. All these kleshas are all sufferings that is imposed on us. We have adhyatmika, the pains from our own body. We get headache, we get stress, hypertension, so many different kinds of diseases, problems from our own mind. Then we have adhibhautika. Adhibhautika means disturbance from other living entities. We have varieties of mosquitoes. Every season there is different mosquitoes which is giving us different troubles. We have various diseases because of that. We have our neighbors creating difficulties. We have theft, robbery, so many things. So this is all the problems that we get from other living entities. And then also we have natural calamities, tsunami, earthquake, and so on. So many problems we get. So by taking shelter of the message of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us guidance how to approach and how to handle the situation in this material world and come out of this suffering. Okay, the subject of the Bhagavad Gita, what are the major topics that is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita? So there are 5 topics which are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara, the supreme controller, how the Lord is the supreme controller, how everything is under his control, he is the cause of all the causes, he is the under his supervision, how everything is happening, that is being discussed. And the jivas, the position of the jivas, the living entities, how we are being controlled. We falsely think ourselves to be the controller, but we are being controlled. And the Lord is the predominator, we are being predominated. So we have to cooperate with the wishes of the Lord. Then there is the discussion of Prakriti, the material nature, how this material nature works, what is this material nature, how it is created, and what is our relationship with this material nature, that is being also discussed. And then Kala, the eternal time, how the material nature, what is the time period of this material nature, what is the time period of its manifestation, and how it is unmanifested, how it is maintained, how it is annihilated. So what is the time period, what is the effect of the 3 modes on this material nature. All those things are being discussed. And then there is also a discussion on karma. Karma is the activity, the actions. Every one of us in this material world, we perform actions. No one is inert. Every second we are doing some activity. And so what are the implications of our actions? What is a good action, what is a bad action, how to come out of the entanglement of the reactions of the actions that we have performed. So all those things are being discussed. And of all these 5 topics, the first 4, Ishvara, Jivas, Prakriti, Kala, these are eternal. And karma that's the only thing which is not eternal. Karma can be karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. This karma can be completely, we can come out of the effect of the karmic effects by surrendering our lives to Krishna, so that we will not be bound again in this material world and we can come out of the struggling and suffering of this material world. Okay. So Prabhupada, he says that from Bhagavad Gita we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. So all these things we come to know. Now Prabhupada says the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes, and Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the supreme spiritual master, the Lord himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters. We must accept Bhagavad Gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation in the matter. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurishaya, meaning that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with 4 defects. So yesterday we discussed quite a lot on this. Prabhupada very clearly says that this Bhagavad Gita, we take it as a very solid evidence, because this is not something, some mundane book or some imaginative work or some story or some novel. This is a very important message spoken by the Lord Himself, and it is beyond all the defects. It's for sure, if we approach this Bhagavad Gita in right spirit and we take shelter of Bhagavad Gita, which is not different from Krishna, then we will be relieved of our sufferings. We will be able to be situated in our constitutional position. So Prabhupada also gives a warning that it should be understood in a proper way. Neither you add anything nor you subtract anything. You don't have any whimsical interpretation. So all these things Prabhupada is discussing in the introduction. And yesterday we discussed how important it is to hear the message in parampara, and how this Bhagavad Gita is the Gita Upanishad, or the important book of study which is coming in parampara. So that we saw yesterday. So we will not discuss more on this. The result of understanding the Bhagavad Gita now. After studying the Bhagavad Gita, what should be the result of it? What will happen? So if we properly utilize the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, then our whole life will become purified, and ultimately we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. Now this is the point, that we will be able to transgress this bhavasagra, this material world. Dukkalayam ashashvatam. This is the place of suffering, and this is a place of temporary place, and the place of miseries. We will be able to cross over it. Krishna says that, so na tad bhasayate suryo na sashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam. So those who come back to my abode, they never come back to this material world. So Krishna gives this assurance. So if we take shelter of Krishna and his teachings, then this will be the result of that. Therefore, the Lord desires to reclaim all these fallen conditioned souls, to call them back to the Sanatana eternal sky, so that the Sanatana living entities may regain their eternal Sanatana positions in eternal association with the Lord. And when we see this in this introduction, there is quite some discussion Srila Prabhupada is making on that. He is specifically quoting from Sripad Ramanujacharya about Sanatana, the word Sanatana, and he says that how it has got neither beginning nor an end. And he is explaining also that real religion means we are followers of Sanatana Dharma. It's not belonging to any particular faith. Prabhupada also discusses a lot on faith, and we will discuss as we go through the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada he discusses quite a lot on the in the introduction itself, that we take up our Sanatana positions, means we go back to our constitutional position as an eternal servant of the Lord, and that's a permanent position. And when we take shelter of the Lord and engage in His service, Swarupena Vyavastitihi, we get fixed up in our constitutional position as eternal servants of the Lord. The service is the constant companion of the living being, and that the rendering of service is the eternal religion of the living being, Sanatana Dharma. So this is our, Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma means the intrinsic nature of the jiva, or intrinsic nature of anything is called Dharma, and specifically the intrinsic nature of the jiva is to render service to the Lord. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. So the eternal religion of the living being is Sanatana Dharma. That Sanatana Dharma is rendering service to the Supreme Lord. So one who can approach that spiritual sky is not required to descend again to the material sky. So Srila Prabhupada says that, so one, after we have undergone all the sufferings, and after we have taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, we engage in His service, then once we go back to the Lord's abode, we will not come back to this material world. By the mercy of the Lord, we will be in bliss and rendering service to the Lord. And we will have more discussions on that as we go through the specific chapters of the Gita. The jiva has got a bitter experience in this material world, and when he is back with the Lord, by this mercy he goes on to serve the Lord eternally. And Prabhupada says, now to attain this result, so as we said, that is the prayojana, that we go back to the Lord, be eternally in His service, in bliss. Now, we need to know the process. How do we do this? How do we get to that stage? The practical application of this knowledge. Prabhupada speaks. One must remember the form of Krishna. If he quits this body thinking of this form, he surely approaches the spiritual kingdom. So Prabhupada many times he says that this is the test. Ante Narayana Smriti. The real test is that at the time of leaving the body, are we able to remember the Lord? So by practicing the principles of Krishna consciousness, by chanting the names of the Lord, by remembering the Lord, then we will be able to remember the Lord at the time of leaving this body. At the time of leaving this world, we will remember the Lord. We must always engage our minds in reading these Vedic literatures. In that way, it will be possible for us to remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. So by regularly reading, by regularly hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita, what is happening? We are able to remember the Lord. So that is the whole purpose of the study of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, or the whole practice of Krishna consciousness, is to smartavyam satatam Vishnu, vismartavyam na jatuchit. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So this is the what is this? This is the essence of all the rules and regulations, or of all the rules and regulations given in the scriptures. All the study of the scriptures should ultimately lead us to this point. And this study of the Vedas, study of the Bhagavad Gita helps us to always be in touch with Krishna. The Lord therefore tells Arjuna that he need not give up his occupation, but while he is engaged in his occupation, he should remember Krishna. This is again another interesting point Prabhupada is giving here, that we will be able to practice Krishna consciousness in whatever situation we are. We are a householder, we are a brahmachari, we are vanaprastha, we are a sannyasi, whatever situation we are in, we don't have to give up in whatever situation we are performing our activities, but we should establish our connection with the Supreme Lord, and we should mold our life to remember Him. This is the point. So that's why Prabhupada is pointing out, Arjuna did not go and then sit in the forest and then he was not doing tapasya. He was right there fighting with his bow and arrow, and Krishna taught him to also simultaneously remember Him. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. If the intelligence and the mind are always engaged in the thought of the Supreme Lord, then naturally the senses are also engaged in His service. See, mind, we will see how the mind is superior to the senses. Intelligence is superior to the mind. So when intelligence and mind is docile in Krishna's service, then automatically the senses also follow. So that's why we need to constantly hear from Krishna and his bona fide representatives. Then our mind, which gets dragged here and there, it again comes back to the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Krishna's instruction to Arjuna is to remember me, and Lord Chaitanya's injunction to always chant the names of Lord Krishna are the same instruction. So Krishna also in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishisi satyam te pratijani priyosime. So become a devotee, manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji, worship me, offer your homages to me. So in this way, you always think of me, then you will come back to me, Krishna says. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gives the same instruction. Yara deko tarikaho Krishna upadesh amaragya guru hai taro desh. So whomsoever you meet, wherever you meet, you just tell them about Krishna. Ask them to remember Krishna. Chant Krishna's name. So by chanting Krishna's name, we will remember the Lord, and we will be able to be in touch with the Lord. And so this is what we need to do. So Bhagavad Gita, reading Bhagavad Gita regularly, it helps us to constantly put the important subject matter that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are His eternal servants. Our whole existence is to please the Supreme Lord. So that is we are constantly reminded. And also Srila Prabhupada in this introduction, he discusses about the various relationships that the devotee has with the Lord, starting with the most important relationship of being the servant of the Lord. We are all eternal servants of the Lord. And then there are various other relationships that we, keeping that as the central point, various other relationships one can have with the Lord. So that is also being discussed. Okay. Now Prabhupada, in the conclusion to the introduction, we can see Prabhupada is quoting from the Gita Mahatmya of Shankara. Prabhupada is nicely explaining some of the key verses. I would like to quickly run through those verses, wonderful verses. Prabhupada says, Gita-śāstram idang punyam yapatet prayatah puman Vishnopadam avapnoti bayashokadi varjitah. So for one who reads follows the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one can be freed from all miseries and anxieties in this life, and one's next life will be spiritual. Gita dhyana shilasya pranayama parasya cha naiva santi hi papani purva janma kritani cha. So if one reads Bhagavad Gita very sincerely and with all seriousness, then by the grace of the Lord, the reactions of his past misdeeds will not act upon him. So this is the mercy of the Lord. So machitta sarva dukkani. Krishna says in the Gita also, by my mercy you will be able to cross over all sufferings, all difficulties. So this is again another beautiful verse. Mala nirmochanam pungsang jalasnanam dine dine sakrid gitamrita snanam samsara malanashanam. So by taking bath in the water, we are able to purify our body, but little bit of bathing we do in the sacred Ganges of the Bhagavad Gita, we will be able to come out of the sufferings of this material world. Our material life will be vanquished. Gita su Gita kartavya kim anyai shastra vistarai ya swayam padmanabhasya mukha padma vinishrita. So this is what yesterday we quoted, that this is again this is one speciality with the Bhagavad Gita, directly spoken by the Lord. That's a speciality of this Bhagavad Gita. The Lord himself directly speaks from the instruction comes directly from the mouth of the Lord. So this one book will suffice, that contains the essence of all the Vedic literatures, and especially because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Bharatamrita Sarvasvam Vishnu Vaktrad Vinishritam Gita Gangodakam Pitva Punarjanmana Vidyate. So he says that for one who drinks the water of the Ganges attains salvation. So what to speak of one who drinks the nectar of Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is the essential nectar of the Mahabharata, and it is spoken by Lord Krishna himself, the original Vishnu. And also in another place, I think in his song of Bhaja Govindam, he says that, so little bit of Bhagavad Gita you hear, you will not, there is no need for you to meet Yama and have any discussion with him. So in another song he writes like that. So that's the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. So this is again a beautiful analogy he explains here. Sarvopanishado gavo dhogda gopala nandana partho vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdam gitamritam mahat. So the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads, is just like a cow, and Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita. So we can see that all those who follow in the footsteps of Arjuna, so they will also be able to drink the nectar that Krishna is very mercifully distributing through this message. And this is again an important verse. In fact, it's very good to learn these verses, but it will be very helpful for us in preaching, and because it gives a very clear evidence of how the superiority of the Bhagavad Gita, message of the Bhagavad Gita. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantras Tasya Namani Ani Karmapi Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. So let there be only one book, that is Bhagavad Gita, one common scripture. Let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna. Let there be one hymn, one mantra, one prayer, the chanting of his name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And let there be only one work, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, with this, we will conclude the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. And also we can see another amazing thing in this introduction. We can see Srila Prabhupada gives the list of the spiritual teachers, or the Parampara Acharya's name, all the the Acharya, starting from Prabhupada himself to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then you can see the whole chain going up to Krishna. So we belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So we can see the disciplic succession given here, and it is very authentic. So when we distribute the book, we can show to people that it is a very authentic edition. You can see the message is coming in parampara. So there are many other things that could be said on this, but since there is not much time, we are just giving some time for questions. We have some 3-4 minutes left. We have some questions. A couple of minutes are left. I'm sorry, I took some extra time. Do you have any questions or comments or realizations? Yeah, the question is, the definition of Sanatana means that it has got neither beginning nor end. What is that? So as I said, we will discuss more about that when we do specific verses. But in brief, so Sanatana means it's eternal. It's not something that we do for if we perform activity for a short period of time. It's an eternal activity of the jiva. So that is called eternal. Eternal means there is no beginning and no end. So he gives that definition very clearly. That because generally there is a misunderstanding that anything that we do, specifically in the practice of Krishna consciousness or any spiritual practice, you do for some short time and you get some benefit, and then you just live it. No, the nature of the soul or the eternal activity of the soul is to render service. So that's what the Sanatana Dharma. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
I frequently came across this question. They were asking, Krishna gave it to Arjuna. Then what parampara started from Arjuna? They were asking. Whether he gave to someone else or some
Yeah, if you see in the okay, the question is that the Lord spoke this message to Arjuna. So how does the message is how further we got it? So that is the question. So we can very clearly understand that in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that this knowledge, even before Krishna spoke to Arjuna, he spoke to the sun god, and then from sun god he spoke to Vivaswan and then Manu, and then the whole disciplic succession is there. It comes like that, and the knowledge is lost over a period of time. And then later the Lord says that now since the knowledge is lost, I am again telling this to Arjuna, he says. Then also we can see that when Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, well, it was recorded by Vyasadev, and then from Vyasadev, so if we see our parampara, that the knowledge comes like Krishna to Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyas, then Vyas to Madhva, and then the parampara continues, then the knowledge comes. So this message, Bhagavad Gita, is eternal, this knowledge is there, and in parampara it comes. So the Lord spoke to Arjuna 5000 years back, but the knowledge is preserved, and it is not, as it said, it's not manipulated like the mango, the fruit which is given, it is shared from the top to bottom. So like that, the acharyas have preserved this message as it is, and they have given. And that's why we see even the Bhagavad Gita, there are 700 verses in this Bhagavad Gita. All those verses, nobody has added anything or nobody has subtracted anything. Sometimes you may see in some Madhva edition, we may see 702 verses. Sometimes you can see that, but it's sometimes when there are certain verses which are in like you have 4 lines, they are this anushtup. Sometimes there are 2 verses that are added, so it may appear like 702, but everyone 700 verses in parampara, it's completely maintained. So that's how it is preserved. Okay, so we will stop here. So please, for tomorrow, please read the 1st chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We will begin the 1st chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and also I would request you to, we will go through that, the contents of the Bhagavad Gita, we will also see. Please, you may see in the contents there is a short description that is given. You can read that also. We will cover that also, and we will see how it goes from tomorrow. Thank you very much.